Hello and welcome to NARC Live on Wednesday the 2nd of March 2022, coming to you live from Norfolk on the east coast of England with Tammy M0TC.
Hello.
And me, David G7URP. Good to see you. On tonight's show, we find out what's next for NARC with analysis of the survey that so many of you took part in. Join us now, live on Zoom if you can. Details in the newsletter, or of course on Facebook and BATC as usual. Sowing the seeds on new technology? What is that, isn't it?
I don't know, we'll come to that in a minute, shall we?
Oh, no. And we find out what on earth this is. But first, I'm afraid we start with the very sad news that we've lost one of our most valued members in the past few days. But the member wasn't a human, but a dog. This is AJ, and he was Mervyn G0HZP's guide dog, and AJ died very suddenly of a likely heart attack. This is a picture of AJ at one of our Christmas parties. I know you and of course us are very particularly sorry for Merv, because a guide dog must be an extra special canine companion. And we've today posted a NARC sympathy card to Merv, and our thoughts and prayers are with him, of course. That's AJ, beautiful dog, wonderful dog. And more, shall we say, difficult, sad news, because I've heard from several of you with your concerns over amateur radio in the Ukraine. And here are just a couple of them. Firstly, John 2E0TWQ is the first to tell me of many of you that you should know that a message circulated by the UARL and the LRU have circulated a message to all radio amateurs worldwide that please be informed that due to the imposition of martial law, the use of amateur radio stations in the Ukraine is prohibited for 30 days. That was actually written on the February the 23rd. I'm sure we all understand the reasons, but thank you to those of you who let me know and asked me to share that on NARC Live tonight. And I just picked one of the other comments out because it seemed to sum, I think, what most of us will feel. This is from Ralph 2M0RHT and said that, "Dear David and Tammy, just a note to say that I've learned that radio hams in Ukraine have been told that they must not use amateur radio. This is sad and demonstrates how fortunate we are to live in a land where we are still free to use the radio. Poland Amateur Radio Society are offering to act as an intermediary for ham radio operators in the Ukraine. What should we do in response to the sad, indeed evil situation in that country at this time? God bless." That's saved from Ralph, but I'm sure from most, if not all of us tonight. Now, Malcolm G3PDH has written to say that NARC have made a very good start to the 2022 Club Championship contests by winning the first three contests of SSB, Data and CW. He says that we have a 5,700 point lead in the local club section. So well done to all those that took part. And of course, we love you to continue supporting the club. If you love contesting, we hope you'll support NARC in the coming weeks and months. Paul G3VBT has written and said it all started a few weeks ago after I bought a tenor mast, as it needed to be installed at the bottom of the garden. First, I had to lower the poles going up through the tree, holding the 4-metre end fed. This originally was a low band base station antenna on 85 megs. Not unlike a J-pole, and rebuilt scaled up for the 4 metres. After working from the ladder, I decided it was time to hang up my ladder. Part of the system is shown after taking down. I'm just going to show you another picture here. Tammy's doing something else in the studio quickly. And once the wood has been taken away, we can think of the next stage. I did your job then.
You did? Oh, that's all right.
Once some time ago, if I did that, there'd be a walkout. But Paul would know more about that. We'll maybe talk to him about that later. So anyway, thanks for sharing that with us, Paul. G3 VPT that was, not Paul SEM. Anyway, Bob G6 PWS. Now he sent us this picture, the one that I mentioned earlier, and it's a bit alarming really. I can't believe how that got through the editor. But you can see there are all the bings that I can't help thinking that reminds me of something. I mean, but look, we've got a flux capacitor, a long wire there in the middle, an antenna, a spare antenna at the back. It's what is that? A dilithium crystal? You'll know what that is, won't you? Isn't
Yeah,
that, isn't that a science thing? What is that?
Well, they're all at different things, aren't they? I don't know what a horn of Gondor is. Is that for some
A horn of Gondor.
astrometric droid? That's Star Wars.
I love
dilithium's obviously Star Trek.
Is it? What about the unobtainium? I love that word. If you made that up, Paul, that's brilliant.
Snitch.
Oh yeah, golden snitch. Yeah.
From Harry Potter.
But don't you think that just reminds? I mean, you've got the foot switch. Obviously, that's for, to operate the mic and everything remotely. But don't that remind you of something? I can't quite. Is it a Yaesu or an Icon? Maybe I don't know. What do you reckon?
Maybe.
Okay, if you have any ideas, let us know. I've got also. I ought to read out a message to go back to Sirius for a moment, because Roger G3LEI has said another silent key. I'm afraid, David. Ray W2RS. He's put this on here. I don't normally do something like that unqualified, actually, but I'll share that with you as Roger has put that on the Zoom call as a message there. Sad, very sad news. Now we have some better news though, because did you know that the club has an award-winning guitarist amongst us? Did you know that? Have a look at this. This says the best rock guitarist in the Norwich Fab Club Music Awards, and it's Steve Ayres, G3 EVA, and Tammy spotted this on social media earlier. FAB, in case you're not sure, PHAB, stands for Physically Handicapped and Able-Bodied. And I think Steve goes there on a Tuesday evening and plays, and I'm sure other people did as well. But Steve, well done, and well done for that certificate. It says you're the best rock guitarist for Norwich Fab. So thank you, and well done for what you do. And finally, just to let you know that our monthly Tonight at 8 camp is coming along, which is from the RSGB, but Tammy and I produce it for them. And this Monday, it's the 7th of March, and it's The Bluffer's Guide to Digital Voice by Tim Kirby, GW4VXE. So if you're not sure what digital voice is all about, and I guess that's all the C4FM and D-Star and things like that, then that's this coming Monday at 8 o'clock on the RSGB YouTube channel. Just look at their website to find out more details. rsgb.org/webinars. That's the notices. Little people, Tammy?
Little people? Yeah, here's the little people for this week. This amused me. It's called Sweet Bags. So it's little bags made out of sweet corn.
Oh, sweet corn.
Yeah.
It didn't occur to me initially. Oh, yes, I see. I have the little kernel on the left there. Brilliant stuff. So it's miniature-calendar.com.
Yeah.
We've got someone else. I saw you looking at some messages there. We've got 3 places to... Anyway, we ought to just tell you, miniature-calendar.com.
Yep.
That's where you go to find one of these pictures, and Tammy picks one out for us every week.
Yep.
Let's see us in vision now.
The Horn of Gondor apparently is from Lord of the Rings. So Tony has just told us.
Okay.
TDK. So there you go.
Thanks. So good to see so many people at home. Actually, shall we just go and say hello to them, because they're all busy there waiting. Of course, we're going to shortly have a discussion about NARC, but let's just have a look and see you all at home. Yeah, look at you. Give us a wave. Show you're real. Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll be coming to you soon. Don't worry. But first, let us know. Just a reminder, of course, to let us know what you've been doing. radio@dcpmicro.com. As always, drop us a line to there with the pictures or stories or anything, and it all makes this programme, this bit of NARC Live every week. Thank you. So now round to that competition. What on earth?
Just before we do what on earth is this, I'm just going to put this up quickly. If anybody's on Facebook or on BATC and you do want to join the Zoom and you haven't got the codes to hand, this is the code. So I'll just give you a sec just to just to write that down.
So there we are. It is also on our newsletter and on our website. So if you can't find that easy, or if you can't write that down, but if you want to join us, it's certainly, you can't have too many tonight, because we're going to have a discussion in a little while about what you want next for your club. There's the details at the bottom of your screen now. Okay. Tammy, what on earth is this? Did you have any idea what this was? I must confess, when I saw it, I had no idea. Any ideas? You should have known. We mustn't say what it is yet, but because it's sort of one of your hobbies.
I saw the answer.
Okay.
Like directly next to what it was. So, but I might have got it.
Let's see if anybody. That picture is a sewing machine. Stuart has said that picture is a sewing machine. I knew I'd seen that somewhere. That picture we showed a little while ago.
Oh,
that one, not this one. No, but thank you, Stuart. Sorry, we're getting to all of these. Simon M0SIH has put on BATC. He thinks this is a metal detector. I guess that's the answer to that. Okay. And let's see what other people have said. Roy G3SZIG says, looks like a metal detector's probe.
Tom GAXQD says he thinks it's a metal detector pinpointer. Excellent device for finding the sewing machine needles you just dropped.
Do we have to mention it everything? It's nothing to do with sewing machines, is it? We can't give that much away.
It's not anything to do with sewing
machines. Colin M0GMK says, this week's object is a pinpointer metal detector. I cannot believe what he says then. Could it find a sewing machine needle in a haystack? What is the matter with everybody tonight?
I know. Richard M6UES says, is it a personal attack alarm?
Okay. Paul 2E0NXL says, anyway, I think what it is a pinpoint metal detector. It's for looking to see if a coin is out of a hole after detecting it with your big detector. Another one of my hobbies, metal detecting, but hasn't been doing that very much because of COVID.
Nev M0NFI.
He's not going to mention, is he?
Maybe a crazy guess, but could it be a radio bug finder? That's a spy listening device, not a fault on the radio.
Good. No mention of the
thingy.
Thing we can't talk about. Okay, good. All right, so that's the answers we've had. And let's have a look and see what it is.
It was a pinpointer, which you use in metal detecting.
Yeah, and John 2E0TWQ sent that in. I'd never seen one of those before, and you hadn't either, had you? Even though you're into metal detecting.
I've seen it.
Have you one of those?
Yeah. When you sort of start to dig a hole, you put the end of it to the earth, and then I'm not sure how it works, but it's a bit more accurate to actually find exactly where it is.
I guess that's why it's called a pinpointer. Yeah. Anyway, thank you very much to those of you who got it right. I think that's really good. Thank you for all of you, though, who entered, apart from the ones who mentioned sewing machines again. Because we're dumb sewing machines. I'm sure there's no sign of them here. Anyway, let's have a look and see what the competition holds this week. Because what on earth is this? Now, I'm going to just give a little bit of a clue here, because it's difficult, because this is something that's been homemade by somebody for a specific job, but it is a job that you'd understand. And the only clue I'm going to give you, because I think we should, otherwise everybody will be sending in their own individually made things and nobody's going to stand a chance. But this was sent in by that award-winning guitarist, Steve G3EVA. Now, if that gives you a clue, that's all I'm going to say, though. All right? But it does apply to everyone, especially in this hobby. But that's all the clue it is. So what do you think that special tool is that Steve has made? Answers to radio@dcpmicro.com by 3 o'clock next Wednesday at the very latest. But if you think you know now, why not drop us a line now? And we'll reveal all next Wednesday night on NARC Live to see what that is.
Can't wait.
No. We did wonder about doing this, to be honest, because as I said, a homemade tool could be something that, is very individual, but we always like to think people have got a chance. But if you reason it out and have a look at that, you might work out what that is. Good luck. So finally, just a quick look before we get on to tonight's main event, what's happening on the club this week. On Sunday, we've got the GB2RS News on GB3NB at 7 o'clock. On Monday night, we've got the Monday Night Net at 7:30 on GB3NB with Tim M1MIT hosting this week. And at 8:30, the 80 metre CW Net on 3.543 megahertz. And then next Wednesday here, it's the one we've been pushing for a little while. It's called a Retro Technology Interactive. Retro. When I said this to Tammy, she was getting excited about digging out all my clothes and things, but no. This is just about retro technology. It can be radio. The worrying thing is that two of those things are ours.
I know.
They're not quite in everyday use, but anyway. But you, I'm sure, have your favourite retro technology. All we ask is it's technology related to retro, so you don't bring all your kipper ties and all that sort of thing on. You know what a kipper tie is, don't you?
It's a tie, is it?
Yeah. Oh dear. Never mind. Anyway, if you've got something retro technology, we'd love you to share it with us next week. You can share it on Zoom, as many of you are on Zoom tonight. We'll send you another link for next week's show. Or you could just send us pictures. The one on the left was Richard G0JAG sent us that picture of that lovely handheld television from probably 70s, I should think. Maybe 80s, I guess. But whatever your favourite bit of retro is, with it, if it's a radio, that's great. If it's something radio, but if it's something else, then don't be afraid to send it to us. We would love to see that next week on the show. That's what it's all about, retro technology, next week on NARC Live. And just another reminder about this. I know we remind you every week, but we had a bumper week a few weeks ago. We sent about 5 of these out. This is our Norfolk Amateur Radio Club card. We're happy to send that to anybody who you would like to receive it, wherever they are in the world, for whatever reason, whether they're celebrating, maybe feeling a bit down or whatever. We would be very happy to send this Norfolk Amateur Radio Club card. Just send us the details of their address to that address on your screen now, at the bottom of your screen, and we'll send it to them. Okay, so now we're on to our main event. Now tonight is really all about you, and it's about us and about NARC, Norfolk Amateur Radio Club, what you want of the future. We've told you about this for a couple of weeks, and we did send out a survey to everybody who was registered on our newsletter list. That was members and non-members on the weekend. And the first thing I think I have to say is we are really chuffed and pleased and with the number of you that responded, because of those people who responded, and we have about 150 odd paid members now, we had 109 people respond to that survey and enter the survey, and one other person who just didn't want to use the Google technology on that, so they sent the answers by email. So 110 people in total, and that is wonderful for us, believe me. When we normally do surveys for things like awards and things like that, occasionally with members, we normally get 30 or 40, to be honest. So to get well over 100 is really good. So thanks to all of you. Now, we know that lots of people are waiting at home to have a talk about it, or maybe they're just going to just watch and take part. But I think the first thing we really need to do is to share that data with you. And at this point, I must thank Sonny, M0SYW, because he put that Google form together. I wrote the questions, but the questions were made up from all of the points that the committee discussed and sent on an email around of us. I made up those questions that we asked, and Sonny put them together to make it easy for you to respond. We had to do it that way, but I'm sure, I know a few of you have written to me separately. I'll try and cover some of those things later. But if you can imagine over 100 people writing emails to us I would have never been able to correlate that information and present it to you. And we did, some of them are pretty straightforward, really, yes, no sort of answers. Anyway, without further ado, I think it's important that we go to those now. And I did think, just as a coincidence, a PS really, interesting that about the same time as we did that, we didn't know it was going to happen, but the RSGB are asking us similar sort of questions to us about their convention later in the year, whether it will be in person, whether you'd like it online, whether you'd like to watch it on a private link or whatever. So it's interesting that not just NARC, but the RSGB, and I'm sure lots of other organisations are now maybe coming out of the other side of the tighter restrictions of COVID and seeing what you want. So once again, thank you ever so much to all of you who responded. So let's get on with the data. We're going to display them as sort of pie graphs, which I'm sure most of you can understand and interpret quite easily. So I'll ask Tammy now to show the first one, please. I said to those of you at home on Zoom, we will be coming to you, but I think it's important first for people to see this data. So the first question really was just to validate the people who answered. That doesn't mean that people who are not members of NARC, that their feelings don't matter, because they do, but obviously a member of the club carries a bit more weight, and we thought we needed to validate the fact how many people are actually members responding. And what that shows is that 96% of people who responded to this survey is a current paid up member of NARC. And the next one says, the question, do you feel you'll personally feel ready to attend face-to-face club meetings from the spring? And what we see there is just under 70% in the blue say yes, they do feel ready to attend face-to-face meetings, and about 30%, just over 30%, for they weren't ready to meet from the spring. So roughly 2/3 of people feel they're ready to face-to-face meetings from the spring. And by spring, by the way, I put spring, which I know is fairly vague. Meteorological spring started yesterday, but I think most people accept that as being sort of April, May time. This gives us time to plan. The next question we asked, do you feel you'll personally feel ready to attend face-to-face events from the spring? In other words, things like the International Marconi Day at Caister on the 23rd of April. That's our first event that we'll be planning. Again, similar results. They're slightly higher, actually. 81% or nearly 82% said yes, they do feel ready to attend face-to-face events, and just over 18% said no. And the next question. NARC has traditionally always met every week, but since the pandemic, this has been online only through NARC Live, what you're watching now. Now that we've experienced both, we would like to know if you would like the club to, and I'll read those to you because I know some of you are looking at this on small devices. What we're looking at there are 3 colours, orange, blue and red. The blue says return to physically meet every week. So we're looking at, well, let's take the big one first then, the orange, which says there's a mix of both online and physical meetings with, for example, alternating talks presented online with physical gatherings for social meeting, practical demonstrations, private sales, etc. So without wishing to analyse exact breakdowns of those smaller amounts, you can see that overwhelming majority, getting on for 90%, 87.2% said they wanted a mix of both online and physical meetings. And without wishing to preempt anything here, for me and for many others, this was the most crucial key question that we were asking, really, because it's the way we go forwards. So there we are, 87.2% said they'd like a hybrid, as it's called, mix of both online and meeting. The next question. Are you happy for the club to return to meeting at CNS School? Or would you rather it meet at another meeting place, or maybe occasionally meet at another venue? And then I put a note there, please bear in mind that this is a large club and any venue would have to offer parking for typically 40 to 60 cars, because most people come on their own, and we'd have typically from maybe 30 on a very quiet night or a contest night to 60, 70, 80 people sometimes for a talk. This is obviously, we didn't know the results of what people would want at that point either. So we had 103 responses to that, and that's nearly everybody from the 109 that entered. 62.1% said they would like us to meet at CNS School, which of course is where the club's natural home is. It's where we were until COVID struck in March 2020. The red that you see there, 29.1%, says a variation of venues. For example, CNS, then occasionally somewhere which can offer food and drink as well. And please include any suggestions, and I'll go into some of those later on. And then 8.7% felt that they wanted to meet in another venue, not CNS at all. So there we are. Just to go over again, in case you can't read it on your device. 62%, the big blue chunk, that was continue to meet at CNS School. The red chunk, 29%, nearly a third, a variation of venues, CNS and then occasionally somewhere else. And 8.7% said another venue. And the next question. During the pandemic, NARC Live has been broadcast every Wednesday night and can be watched by anyone with access to the internet and Facebook, BATC or YouTube. If the conclusion is to continue to present most talks online, do you think they should only be able to be viewed by current paid up NARC members? There was 107 people of the 109 responded to this. The blue, 17.8% says yes, members only should be able to watch on a member only link. And the red, at 82.2% said no, keep it open for anyone to watch as now. I think that's quite an interesting result, actually. Remember that most people who responded to the survey were NARC members as well who voted on this. So 82% felt that anybody should be able to watch it as it is now, essentially broadcast in an online sense. 17.8% said members only should be able to watch. Next question was, so when the club meets, would you prefer it to meet on? And this was the key thing about which date and which day, because if we're restarting the club, we've kind of got a fresh sheet to possibly consider. As for those of you who are members before, you'll know that we've met for as many years as I can remember. That's probably about 20 years, my membership of the club, on a Wednesday evening. So the question was a Wednesday evening as now, and that is that big blue chunk there, 83.5% feel that. The red chunk there you see was a Tuesday evening, and the orange was another day, and people could state various other days. The reason, just for interest, if you're wondering why I specifically put a Tuesday, is because often the reason people can't attend on a Wednesday or didn't is because there is a contest on a Wednesday, an HF contest, whereas there isn't an HF contest on a Tuesday. And I thought that would be an interesting question to suggest a Tuesday or any other day, of course. But there we are, and you can see the smaller amounts. Either is fine, due to work. I'm not quite sure about that. It looks like an answer has slipped in there somewhere, due to work. But anyway, that's the results. So it's again an overriding majority of people, 83.5%, think that it should continue to meet on a Wednesday. Next question. Talks. We wanted to know what you feel about the talks. Obviously, they've been online for 2 years now. But whether they're online or whether they're in person or whether it's somebody over a Zoom or a Skype link and we met at the club, we didn't know what the answer was that going to be, remember, but we were asking about the subject mix really, and was it about right or did it need more of something? Now that shows there that 94.4% felt that we got the mix of talk, the types of talk about right, and the red section there, which I guess is just under 6%, so it's 5.6%, says we need more variety. Now I've got some of those written down and I can go over those as the evening progresses, what some people suggested. And there's some very good valid feedback but there 108 people responded of the 109. But again, an really big majority of people thought that it was about right. And this is the last question that we asked you on the online survey. We asked the club newsletter and the website, and the newsletter, by the way, comes from the website. I added that because they are literally, the way it's actually generated, they are identical pieces of stories that we put on the website, which then come into a newsletter. So the question was, do you read the weekly newsletter or look at the club website where you'll find the same information? 109 people responded there. 85.3% said they regularly look at the website and or the newsletter, and 14.7% said they occasionally look at the website or the newsletter. So again, about 85% regularly look at it, just under 15% occasionally look at it. So thank you very much again to everybody who's responded. I can't say enough, if you're a member of another organisations and things, you'll know that actually to get responses for anything like this can be quite difficult. But I think that considering on our books at the moment, we've got around about 150 or so members, I think, paid members, to have over 2/3 of those respond for something like this is great. And frankly, not to sound soft about this, it shows me and Tammy, we do this every Wednesday night at the moment, it shows that you care and care about your club, and we've tried to give here a really good opportunity to say what you feel. So that's the results of the actual survey. We'll be able to publish those if you'd like us to on a newsletter or something. I've got some specific comments, and before we go to some people at home who'd like to contribute and add to those things, but by the way, just to summarise those, I think the main thing that comes from that is that you would like the club to continue on a Wednesday, and you would like it to be a mix or a hybrid of both online meetings like this, but also starting to meet in person from sometime this spring. Obviously, now we have your feedback. We can now talk to the venues and things like that and work out where we're going. And that will be the next stage, by the way. The committee will meet fairly soon now to discuss the details. I'm sure you've had enough of me talking, but before I do that, I'd just like to read a couple of comments that came from people who felt strongly that although hopefully you understand why we had to do something as pretty much a multiple choice to be able to display that data as we have, a couple of people wrote to me with concerns separate from that, and I'd just like to repeat those. One person, I'm trying to keep these anonymous as well, but just because I'm not sure that everybody wants everything attributed to them, and that's fine. It doesn't matter. They are members. This person says that concerning the proposed physical meetings at CNS, my deepest concern is the lack of adequate ventilation, even in that large room, especially with 60 plus bodies in attendance. I'd always found that the meeting room to become hot, stuffy and airless, even in pre-COVID days. Nobody opened any windows, and I used to notice that it had a detrimental effect upon my respiration as the evening progressed and the oxygen became used up. Many people have voiced concern in the past about how hot and stuffy that room appears to become during a formal meeting. But for those of you who've not been a member of NARC before and visited us, we have a large room called the Sixth Form Common Room at the CNS school. That's where we met every Wednesday pretty much before COVID. And this person went on just to say that, one of the heavily attended events was the tabletop sale, and they think that may be foolhardy to promote such a large event indoors at CNS there. Well, to try and get a quick answer to that, I actually wrote to CNS to ask them about what precautions and things they're doing with that. And this is the answer I got from Nikki Britton at CNS School today. Firstly, she said that yes, you will be able to open the windows for ventilation in the common room. We just asked that you close them at the end of your session. So we cannot open them. We could have always opened them. And I'm not criticising this person writing that. But honestly, if you had asked or anybody would have asked, we would have been happy to open it. It was normally very, very warm room. So we could always open them. And although we would be letting in some cold air, we'd be letting in some fresh air. So I think that's just something that we should do. And secondly, I asked Nikki at CNS just what they're doing about sanitising. And she said that the room is cleaned down after lunch every day. The lunch tables are sanitised and then closed away. The bins are emptied and the floors swept and cleaned. And the cleaning team are still using the heavy-duty sanitiser that they have been throughout COVID. So I hope that reassures that person and anybody else who had similar feelings. The other one quickly I'd just like to read is that somebody who felt there wasn't a space for other comments on the multiple choice. Well, it was kind of deliberate just because I thought if we did get a lot of responses, we'd never get through all of the comments tonight. But totally valid to write to us, indeed you can always write about anything to do with the club. This person feels that very strongly that unless there are face-to-face meetings, the club will eventually wither and die. If not, continued with only Facebook type sessions, i.e. no face-to-face, and these continue to be open to anyone, that the club could wither and die as well. And that if face-to-face sessions are reinstated, then he believed that they should largely replace the current video sessions, i.e. face-to-face should not be occasional get-togethers, but should have the full programme of events as per pre-COVID. So I realise I can read that out to you now with the benefit of us knowing the results, but that person wanted those thoughts to be known. So thank you for both of those people for submitting them. Now, as I said, I've tried to summarise, again, thanks to Sunny for helping us with the data, but where there were spaces for comments and for talking about other venues and other things, you can imagine I got a lot of data there, which I'm going to try and summarise throughout the evening because I've got the data and I've tried to put it in a form which I can read to you in notes. But I think it's very important now to go to some of the people at home, indeed everybody who would like to contribute. So everybody now on Zoom, you don't have to talk, but if you'd like to, just raise your hand now and we'll come to you in sort of rough turn. So if you'd like to join us now and you're on Zoom, let us know and we'll come to you. Jim Bacon's hand went up first, so if you could unmute Jim, or we'll unmute you, and we'll say good evening to Jim G3YLA.
Yeah, good evening, gang. Nice to see so many people on. That's really good. Just a couple of points. One is that in the survey results where people said whether they'd like to come or not to a personal meeting, did that also include people who in no way could attend a personal meeting? In other words, did the survey just include everybody regardless of whether they were able to come regularly? So that's one point. The other point was about contests clashing on Wednesdays. Whilst that may be true, there are also contests on Tuesdays and other nights. So whichever night you pick, I kind of feel there'll be a contest occasionally which interferes. So I wouldn't set that as a high priority personally. And then the third point that I had to make was about, in response to the idea that we should go back to having meetings for the talks in the school hall and so on, and wonder if that would be adversely affected by the timing constraints of having to get everybody out and all cleared away by 9 o'clock. There's precious little time to meet people when you have a talk on, because it's all getting ready to hear the talk. So by the time that's happened, there isn't a lot of social space and time left to go round. But that was all. But some good responses from everybody, and pleased to see people like the idea of a very cautious return. I think it's important for people to be at the stage where we can make our own judgments on it and see how it goes.
Thanks very much, Jim. I'll try and address some of those things because I think I'm able to, but of course this is open for anybody else to discuss as well. Your last point first, about the timing. Yes, it is a concern that CNS, I couldn't complicate it by saying about lots of consideration because we didn't want to skew the results at all from what you all felt. The principle of meeting in a school, or CNS as indeed our home is at the moment, where a lot of things are stored there, and we have a Radio Shack as well for those of you who've not been a member of the club before. So there is an issue that we have to finish there by 9 now. It was way back, it was 10, although we had to be out by 10. Then we had to be out by 9:30. They have now asked any letters, which we are considered, that we have to leave by, we have to start packing up at 9 o'clock. So if we're having a formal meeting, for example, we would have to start packing up at 9. Now, I'm not here to defend or not CNS, but I would say that we could start earlier. So at the moment we used to start at 7 and we finished at 9:30. We now need to start packing up at 9. So any formal event must finish because they have to lock and completely finish locking the school and securing it by 9:30. That was what was told to me recently. So that's one thing. So it is relatively short. It's between 7 and 9 p.m, but we could start meeting possibly a bit earlier, though, for people who work or have other commitments or want to have their dinner and things before they come. Of course, that we don't want to make it too early, probably. But that is certainly a consideration. But as you'll see, we did ask for people to suggest other venues as well, and it was a fully open discussion in that way. The other thing I just point out, Jim, with respect, is that obviously you know, none of us knew what the outcome would be of this survey until I literally got the data at lunchtime today from Sunny. But as we're going to have most of the talks probably online, alternately weeks or whatever, but it's going to be a hybrid where we have a lot of the formal talks online. That does mean that probably a lot of the times that we meet at the school, they will be semi-social events. So it won't be a question of having a talk and then no time to talk afterwards, because I think most of those will be kind of informal type events that we have at the school. But obviously all of that's to discuss. As you're a member of the committee, you'll be part of those discussions clearly on how we take our members' feelings forwards.
Jim's other question was, you were going to answer.
Yeah, no, it's okay.
No, it's all right. I didn't want you to forget.
And what was the question? Now you've thrown me completely. Sorry, Tammy.
Were the people who weren't able to come included in the...
They were. One of the difficulties with this survey is, you know, it's not for me to try and, or anybody, to try and create and say, well, if you're more than so many miles from Norwich, then you wouldn't normally go. And we do have members who are quite a long distance away. Clearly, you know, far too far to come to most meetings. But also some people may consider more than a couple of miles a lot. What we did do was validate the survey and make sure that we needed to know how many people were actually members of the club. They joined and they paid to join before that. That was the way we validated it. And as you saw, I can't remember the exact figure now, but it's well over 90%. It was something like 97% of the people who responded, although everybody was welcome to respond, but were actually paid up members. And I think we just have to rely on people's integrity when they answer that to see whether they would come or not, how far away they are. It is a difficult one, Jim. Does that answer you? I want to go back to you just to make sure that I've answered it fairly.
Yeah, well, it does. I mean, it's the only answer that we could give for something like this. I mean, I think well, it's just the data analyst in me that says that if you've got 10% of the people who are always remote and never come to the club, then there's no way that that question applies to them, and that could have been opted out by saying, if you are within range of the club and regularly attend, do you think this, and this? Just with hindsight, it wasn't apparent when we thought about what to ask people, was it? So it's only after the event that you think, well, maybe that does include some people from the zone that hasn't. And quite understand about the timings and the meetings, and I'm very pleased personally with the alternate meetings online and for the talks. The talks, I feel, are just so much easier to absorb and better when they're presented online, but that's just one person's view. But that then leaves the meetings that are at the school to be free and sociable as they should be for a club.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't mind declaring my personal feeling now. Thanks, Jim, by the way. And mine are similar to yours, really. I felt that, although I know I'm committing, particularly Tammy and myself, to quite a lot of this sort of online, I did think it was important that the club got back together, actually, so people get to meeting again. But I totally accepted so many people, and I didn't expect it at the beginning, that people just generally, they seem to enjoy a talk more by being able to watch it in the comfort of their home, at their own volume, with a TV or a device or whatever, a computer where they can see it clearly. So anyway, that's been decided for us. But yes, except Jim, what you said, I guess we could have put a format on whether people would have wanted to join, whether they would be able to come anyway. In fact, I'll just mention now, Roy G3ZIG has put a comment on Facebook. He's watching us there tonight. He says, because I'm unable to attend the club on a regular basis, that was his reason for not doing the survey. So fine. As I said, I think we have to accept the integrity of the people who answered. I will just read out for balance, and then I'll come back to others who are at home now for their comments. M0JGX on BATC says, I like a bit of... no, that's about next week, about retro. I rejoined the club solely due to NARC Live. I personally would like NARC Live to continue as I live in Lowestoft and Wednesdays are hectic at the best of times. A big thank you to yourselves, Dave and Tammy, for doing an excellent job. Well, that's not why I read it, but you get the feeling that, again, that someone else who can't come very often, probably because they live a little bit out of the area in Lowestoft, that's why they voted. But anyway, as I said, that kind of, because there was such an overwhelming number of people who wanted a hybrid where we both meet face to face and also online, that's kind of that decision, I think, without any doubt, has been made. Let's now go to Stuart, who's got a hand up, M0JKB. Don't worry, I'll come to everybody, however long we go on for tonight. I promise you that anybody who wants to talk on Zoom, we will come to you. But Stuart, you're next.
Yeah, good evening, all. I hope you can hear me, David.
Yes, fine. Thank you, Stuart.
Jolly good. That's all right, because I'm using a dongle connected in the shack this evening.
Your dongle is working fine.
Good, good. Firstly, what a fantastic response. Member of several clubs and done surveys for and on behalf of them, and never got a response as good as that. That is absolutely fantastic. We took the liberty on Monday evening because of the Monday net. Who should have been running the net couldn't run it, so it was like, well, what are we going to do tonight? What are we going to talk about? And I suggested we just had a chat about how people have got on and settled back into, shall we say, post-COVID, and obviously the club cropped up in those talks. And there were a few comments about the club, which is generalised and you've covered, so I won't cover them again. One which did come up, somebody mentioned that if you're watching a talk on the you've signed in to watch a talk, or you're watching it on BATC or Facebook, if it's not your cup of tea or wasn't what you were expecting or not enjoying it, you can just leave and nobody's any the wiser unless you're looking at the bottom of the picture which tells how many people are there. If you're late coming in, you haven't got to make excuses or disturb the talker if you're a little bit late coming in. Or like me, I work and have to get up very early in the morning. So the talk may go on longer than I want to watch it for, so I can leave without disturbing anybody. So the online talks, the Skype or the BATC Facebook talks are excellent from that point of view. And as you already mentioned, one of the other things was somebody said there's no travel implications for people who live too far away. They're members of the club, even James, members of the club, but getting there on a Wednesday for something they really want, that they're really interested in a talk and they can't get there, they can just log in, even if they're out working, get your phone out, log in on your phone and watch the talk. And I'm sure a lot of people enjoy that. And from the survey, it looks as if they did. Just going back to the venue, which is obviously CNS. Now, I understood that when the schools were looking at going back and post-lockdown, that all schools were going to be supplied with a grant or equipment to ventilate the schools. Obviously, the school hadn't mentioned that to you, David, which I was quite surprised, that they were going to have this equipment installed to vent the schools. And I know CNS has got aircon. Whether we can use it or not is another thing, but I know they have got aircon there. And I'm quite happy and quite pleased with the response and what people have said. Okay, thanks, David.
No, thank you very much, Stuart. All valid points, of course. I haven't been back to CNS. We did go back. Tammy and I went in once after a few months after it started, because we realised we had a lot of expensive equipment there, and we had things like consumables from Mark's coffee trolley. Remember that, and biscuits and things like that we had to retrieve before they went badly off. But apart from that, I haven't been back, so I don't know the difference. One thing I do know, I'm not sure how relevant it is that that school has now built a different new sixth form centre somewhere else in the school. So that room, although I called it a sixth form common room because that's what I've always known it as, I think now might just be used mainly for meals at lunchtime, and especially from the feedback that I got from CNS today about the tables. But other than that, I don't know. But we can always open the windows, and although I know it may not be quite as swish as air conditioning, it's not a bad way to ventilate a room, because we know that we're going to definitely get fresh air in, and I'm sure that's something we're just going to have to do that. We'd definitely do that, just as like there will be hand gel and hand sanitizer and all that sort of thing available every week, of course. Thank you, Stuart. So let's have a look now and go to Steve, G4GHO. You're waving your hand, so it's nice to talk to you, Steve.
Good evening, all. Yes, I'd just like to echo Stuart's comments about the online talks for various reasons. I mean, one, it must be technically a lot easier for you to organise these things from somewhere where it's stable. You don't have to transport tons of equipment every time. And they do seem to be a bit more reliable from your base than sometimes they've been in the CNS for various reasons. But on a purely personal note, CNS is just a quick bike ride from me. I prefer not to use a car. I do if I have to, but I prefer not to. I'm not an active, amateur anymore, but this does keep me in touch. And on the other hand, I do like to see some of the live talks. I mean, for example, Paul Money, he just isn't the same online, is he? I think the mix of live meetings and online is, for me, would be absolutely marvellous. I guess that's all I've got to say.
No, Steve, very valid. Thank you very much. It's really all of the... I meant to say at the beginning of this evening, really, that nobody's opinion is wrong in this. Nobody's wrong and nobody's right, exactly. It's the way they feel. It's the way we all feel. And we've all been, I wouldn't say conditioned to feel through COVID, but COVID has certainly made us all think differently to what I'm sure most of us haven't lived through a pandemic before. So, and this is why we've tried to ask everybody what they think. And as I said a minute ago, revealing my own personal feelings, I think we've reached a compromise, basically, but democratically, but we've reached a compromise of having some meetings online, some meetings in person. So whatever you feel, hopefully there'll be something for you. That's what we'll try and do. And regarding the meetings, I still think that there's and we're yet to plan this now because we wanted to know what the members felt first. But I'm going to take an example. Roger G3LDI is very keen to run another CW Forever, which he ran a couple of years ago when we were meeting at the club. And lots of different Morse keys and the different types of using Morse keys were all available to see and look and see the differences for them. Now, Roger had not unreasonably planned for that to be an event in October online. I would suggest that that's going to be actually an event better to have in a room where people can actually go and see these things and hear them operating and everything. So there'll be examples like that and more practical type demonstrations, or maybe even talks that we'll have with somebody, maybe one of our own members, or a member from a presenter from a distance away, who'll want to come and it will be better to be in a real venue. So, but give us a chance. This data literally, as you know, we extended the deadline for the survey. It was only last night at midnight, and Sonny got me the data at lunchtime, and I've spent literally all afternoon trying to correlate it, make it presentable to you, and I've made quite a lot of the comments as well. The single comments that were made is there, and I intend to try and give you most of those this evening. But let's now go back to somebody at home. Ken M0KJW, you were waving furiously a minute ago, so let's go to you first. Hello, Ken.
Hello, mate, and hello, Tammy. Thank you for being here for us. As you said earlier, I think this has probably told you how much we appreciate what you've done. On a purely personal note, I would have liked a change of day to a Tuesday because it's a day when I'm free. Unfortunately, I have 3 clubs that I belong to that all meet on a Wednesday night. NARC I've belonged to for 30 years or so, and it's always met on a Wednesday night. There's a new one I've now joined, and I've never yet been to one of their meetings, but I'm a member of the club. And the other one now, I have an office to run in it. I have a role to play. So I very rarely can get out of that to get to NARC. I would like to come up and socialise and see people. Been very nervous about getting into groups of people since the COVID pandemic. So I'm quite pleased to hear that the CNS school isn't, the hall isn't used quite so wildly, and it's seriously cleaned and sterilised afterwards. So that's makes it a little bit easier for me if I could get there. For me, having the NARC live has been a godsend. It was wonderful through the COVID lockdowns and things like that, because I thoroughly enjoyed being here every Wednesday night. It was like going back to the club for me again, like for me the old days. And now I've got other commitments that have reared their ugly heads. I can come back and I can watch it through Facebook or on YouTube and whatnot. So doing the live ones, it keeps me in contact with the club, and I really enjoy that very, very much. But I say for me, Tuesdays would have been nice because I could have got to you. I don't have anything on a Tuesday. That would have been really nice. But just that's my personal thing. Thank you very much for being there. If it goes back to the school when I can, I will try and get up there. But a plea from me, please keep doing these so I can watch them afterwards. Thank you very much once again, Tammy and David, and I think it's great that everybody turned out in that survey. Thank you very much, David.
Yeah, thank you very much, Kenya, and it really does matter. I've said it several times tonight, but we were overwhelmed with that many people caring enough to respond, so thanks again. Now, Jonathan M1ADX, you're next online. Good to see you, Jonathan. I think we'll need to unmute you, or maybe you can unmute. I think if you could just unmute, Jonathan. That's it.
Yeah, okay. Okay, good. Okay. Yes, I must say, first of all, my thanks for you and Tammy and Sonny for the work you did and the very clear and easily understandable way you presented the results of the consultation. I was absolutely flabbergasted at the results of the numbers of people who had filled it in, and it does show the qualities of the members of the club, doesn't it?
Well, it was certainly nice to hear from everybody, and as I said, although I kind of wrote the questions and Sonny presented them, but they were from the committee. And if you think about our committee, you know, we have 12 of us, and ranging from people in their very early 30s to people in their 80s. So hopefully the committee, which the club ultimately elected a few years ago, was reasonably representative anyway to me, because it was so important to get those questions right, because we know we don't want to keep coming to you every few months with questions and a survey, and I think it's nice that we've got a fairly clear way forward. Almost my worst nightmare of the last few days thinking about the results was if we were going to get knife edge 50-50s or 49-51s. You know, the country's had enough of those in the last few years without our club going through that. But it was, I think, hopefully you all accept the fact that the results there were fairly clear, well, very clear, really, all of them, I think, in which way we should go forwards. And now it's up to the committee to take your wishes and try and do the best we can with it. This is a new world for all of us, after all. But thank you very much for your feedback, Jonathan. Really appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, next, just happens to be on my screen, is Richard, M6UES. Hello, Richard.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Stuart and Steve earlier sort of stole my thunder of most of what I was going to say. As someone who isn't quite as local, coming from, as I do, South Norfolk, Thetford area, I've applauded you all along for what you've done on NARC Live, and I'll say again, just echo everyone else's view, you've done a fantastic job. From my personal point of view, you've actually got me involved in perhaps more talks than I would have been involved in had I been coming to the club, because as Stuart said, if you do get involved in something that's sort of a bit over your head or a bit outside what you're really interested in, you can just always switch off and move on. If, on the other hand, it's something you're half interested in, and as the talk progresses, you suddenly realise, oh, this is quite good, you're there anyway, you're enjoying it. So I would really hope the talks can carry on, as everyone else is saying, in some form of online guides. In fact, before COVID happened, I could recall there was an awful lot of talks you were doing online, but you were doing from the club. So it makes sense just to carry on with those as they are, and maybe, just have the 2-hour practical sessions, social sessions, call them what you like. But it would be nice to get back together and occasionally meet people in that way. And I think of all the other things we used to do outside of the club, such as, radioactive and, field days for beginners and all sorts of bits, radio by the seaside, all sorts of things like that, fox hunts that we can get back into again, whilst maintaining the NARC Live piece, whilst maintaining what we do, what you've been doing online, because I think we really need to keep that going, because I think it's gone down so well and involved more people in a way that it perhaps wouldn't have done before. There are exceptions, as Steve alluded to. Paul Money is one of my personal favourite speakers, as you know, and he isn't the same online. So there would be an occasional talk that perhaps would have to be held at CNS. But for my money, personally, I really think that you've kept the club alive. You and Tammy have really kept the club alive in a way that I think we should embrace and keep on going in the way we have, interjecting it with, as I say, some practicals and some face-to-face meetings.
All right, well, Richard, that's very kind of you. Thank you very much. We'd be very happy to do this. I'm not sure we'd be able to get it every single Wednesday forever, because that's what we've done the last couple of years. But this is probably going to let us off the hook a little bit with other things. And as you've seen, the results are very clear. What people would like is this hybrid going forwards. But thank you for your feedback, Richard.
Yeah, now, what I suggested. So don't, it's very much the right thing to do. But I'm just saying that for talks, certainly for talks, as most people have said, I think the online way is a good way to go.
Good. Well, thank you. Let's now go to Jim, M0ZAH, one of our younger members, if you don't mind me calling you that, Jim. It's nice to be one, believe me. It's a positive thing. Good to see you.
fine. I'm nearly 30. Yeah.
Are you not? Are you? Oh.
That's all right. I was only 14 when I came to the club.
I was just going to say that, and I remember why. Maybe we shouldn't go on to that on air, but it was that pair of radios that you bought from a certain well-known high street retailer, wasn't it?
It's gone now.
Yes, it's gone.
Maybe that's why.
Well,
no, I just wanted to sort of echo what Stuart and Ken touched on as well, and I think someone else mentioned about recordings and things. I don't get a lot of time on a Wednesday night, so it's quite nice if there is a talk that's interesting to be able to go back in time and watch it. And I actually think it benefits people more, because if you've got someone coming into the hobby and they've not had a chance to see the talk because it's happened previously, then there's always an archive to go back on. And sort of to add to that, it would be nice, maybe a logistical nightmare, but it would be nice that if a talk happens at the club like Roger's talk with the keys, if that could also be recorded, because there is something about preserving and archiving that really benefits in the future, because most talks won't get old. Technology obviously carries on, but some of the fundamental things will never change, and actually having someone's perspective on that recorded is really nice to go back to. So I was really happy to see the results, and it would be nice to meet up at the club again. I think, not that I managed to make it very often, but I've actually missed it more than I would imagine so, because there is something quite nice about getting up to the club and socialising and talking about projects you've been involved with, on the informal evenings. And maybe a few more informal evenings would be quite nice, because I feel they're actually quite productive in some sense. And obviously with a mixture of the talks that we would benefit from there being physically. I did raise, and you've spoke about this already, David, is I do feel that CNS times of closing is a bit silly. We're getting to a point where the club can't stay open for very long. Because I remember when it was 10, I remember when we used to go to the airport on a Tuesday, and I mean, basically it was when the bar closed, I think. But we don't want to end up just having sort of where we only meet up for an hour, because it almost may not make sense for someone that's travelling from afar. But they were my comments. But I was very happy to see the results.
Thank you. No, James, really good feedback there. Very, very good point, I thought, about people not just time shifting by a day or so, but the actual an archive of what we've done as a club, and that people, newcomers who come into the hobby, can look back at hundreds of hours. I mean, we've got thousands of hours probably now getting on for of archive, and I thought that's a good point. I've not heard that made before, about the recordings that we make of these talks, so that is a very good thing. I agree about the time. It is a shame 9 o'clock does seem early to finish, but many of the times that we meet, I suspect, at the school will be fairly informal evenings, so 2 hours is not maybe too unreasonable to me. And of course, you've spoken, all of you at home now, what you'd like from the club in terms of a hybrid of talks online generally and social meets at other places. But of course, it doesn't mean that we're at CNS necessarily forever. But we have got a lot of equipment and things there. We built, a Radio Shack there. So I think, as you have clearly mandated that you would like to go back there initially, at least, nothing necessarily is forever, as we've seen for the last 2 years. We need to adapt. So let's see how we get on. I suspect is what we'll do, and we'll try and make it, make the best use of that venue when we do go back there, at least initially. Now, I'm going to go to Sunny now, M0SYW. G7URP. I keep wanting to say that like I'm on the radio. It's ridiculous.
G7URP from M0SYW. Good evening, everybody. Good evening, Tammy. Good evening, everybody who's joining us on Zoom and on the other sessions. I'm not apprehensive about the fact that previously on the future of the club discussions in a public event, I was always dubious about returning to a normal. I have to look after 3 people in a clinically vulnerable category, so I didn't wish to put myself in a position where I was then in a position where I was going to be passing that on. So I was always apprehensive about ever returning, I have made that known publicly. But it was upon more recent reflection, it was my existence in radio personally, just here, wouldn't exist if it wasn't for the club meeting. So I know, as previously mentioned, that I think it's publicly aware that the amount of help and assistance that I provide for hams across the country and across the county, that would all be missing if we didn't meet as a physical perspective. So I did definitely have a change of opinion about the fact that the club should meet, certainly in a social capacity. I was actually unable to attend the committee meeting prior to the questionnaire going out, and I felt like the committee really did a fantastic job of coming up with the best representation for the membership as a whole. So I was unable to attend due to work commitments, but I felt that when I was filling the questionnaire out to be sent, I didn't feel like there was anything missing. Hindsight's a wonderful thing. Thank you, Jim. Slap on the wrist for your data analysing as usual. I felt that it'd cover it just to give us half a help of categorising where we really want the future, or you guys want the future of the club to go, because obviously we're the committee, we're elected on your behalf to act on your behalf for the club, for the future of the club. So I felt that went really, really well. It is the caveat, and I don't think David's mentioned this evening, but obviously we're never going to please every single person 100%. That's not saying that their opinions, views and ideas are not valid. It's just, we're human beings. We're never going to get everybody on side, everybody agreeing. We're all humans. It's what makes us different. It's what makes us a really interesting world. So I was really pleased that it wasn't a 50-50, as David alluded to a little bit earlier, and it was a bit more sided in whichever way. Obviously, you guys voted and feel passionately about that. You did feel like the response, which, like I say, a thank you from a fellow committee member as David, that the response has been so fantastic. It's been a nerve-wracking 48, 72 hours of are we getting the responses? Are we getting the responses? And we did. And I've had a very early start this morning. I was up at 4 and down in Reading at 7 o'clock this morning. So apologies if I'm rambling now. So I'm going to say thanks very much, David, and I'll hand it back to you.
Thank you very much, Sonny. No, it's as you say, it's really gratifying that we had so many people respond. I've said it before, but it's true. Now, I've got quite a few things I'd like to read as the sort of little extra bits and pieces that people put when the answers said other on the survey. If you did the survey, you know what I'm talking about. And I've got quite a bit of that to read out. I'm just going to cover a few of those now, just as a little break, and then we're going to come back to everybody online. All right, so be ready to come back if you'd like to come back on your waiting there on Zoom. I'd love to talk to you, but I just want to read some of these other comments out because they're all very relevant. With many of the questions, there were other bits for other people to put other comments on, and I'll start with CNS, an overwhelming majority, which is what it was. I've had to summarise all these points. You see, there's 109 here, so it's quite a lot to summarise. But several people mentioned the early kick-out had been an issue for some time. That was an exact phrase that somebody used. It did used to be 10. It was at 9:30 now. It's going to be 9 that we start packing up, ready to leave. But as I've explained, I think that we can make the most of those 2 hours, and let's see where the club goes from then and what we do in those 2 hours. Other venues suggested. Now there were a few specific suggestions. Just bear in mind about the parking, as I said. But then even then, we didn't know whether people would be voting to have all of the meetings in a venue with 40, 50 cars, or whether it would just be more of a social event. But these are the sort of, in order that they were suggested, these were the suggestions. The back room of the Village Inn pub, which is where we've had our Christmas dinner for several years, up until a few years ago. There's a specifically private room. That's where some people suggested that we could have a social type event. People could eat. They do carvery style meal, and they also do off the menu meals. That was the top hit, I think. Someone suggested Barford Village Hall. Somebody else suggested, which is a good suggestion, but I'm just a little bit worried about the parking. If you think about Barford, we wouldn't be parking on the field, certainly not in the winter anyway. But I've just mentioned that as a practicality. But a great venue, since it's a part of the home of the club. Tibenham Community Hall was another suggestion from somebody. Whatever venue would be best for the nature of the proposed activity was from somebody else. So if there was a particular activity which lended itself to something, we could go all sorts of different places, really. We're not necessarily going to be tied to going to CNS as our only event. I did also ask them when I talked to them about a week or so ago, can we just start by having one meeting or 1 month or something like that? Not knowing how you were going to vote, and they said that would be fine. And then someone else said plenty of pubs would welcome the business. But again, just think about the parking and whether people would be happy for a social, just to have people sitting around at random tables along with other members of the public, or whether you wanted a room where just Norfolk Amateur Radio Club members would be. They're just things to think about. But thanks for all those different suggestions. They were all of the answers that I got there. Other things that were mentioned, by the way, about travelling to them. One person I remember wrote and said that because of the fuel cost now, and or maybe shortages of fuel, possibly, they thought that meeting online was the only way at the moment. That was their feeling. One person said they hadn't rejoined yet the club, but they would rejoin once we started meeting physically again. Just going on to attending events, then I'm going to come back to people at home. Attending events, a majority said that they will go to the Barford and Radio by the Seaside. They were the large majorities of people said they would do those. 32 people, this is a note for Steve G0KY if he's on the call here, said that they would attend International Marconi Day, or they'd like to. That's again, remember, 23rd of April at Caister Lifeboat Station, a physical event. 32 people said they would like to attend that. 18 people said they would attend a science day. It may not be this year because we literally have just a few days, but it's nice to know that those people were willing to support it. And 17 people said they would also like to attend and help on a stand at Weeting Steam Rally, just to give you a feel for the sort of feedback that we had on that. And then quickly, I'm just going to go over some other things because I've got another 3 pages of this to do, but I want to go back to people at home on Zoom. Talks. We asked, do you think the subject mix of the talks is about right? And many of you said, yes, it was, as you saw. But we also had a little area for comments. And amongst those comments are these, and they're in no particular order. They're actually in the order that they came in on the massive spreadsheet. I've never seen such a big spreadsheet in my life. Had a massive screen open to see them all. Needs more practical talks. So in other words, someone thinks there should be more practical talks. As a comparatively new licensee from a non-technical background, he's found the disproportionate bias to technical matters. So would like more back to basics subjects, even on an occasional basis. That was from somebody. Someone else said, while some United States speakers are very good, others seem to be difficulty in presenting technical matters to those who have not reached their level of knowledge. Someone else said possibly try to help with simpler talks to help get new starters who have not got a full grasp. I love the mix of the subjects we've had so far. The recent programme has been superb, thanks to the organisers. Someone else says, I feel it tends to be biased towards holiday DX fun and contesting. Somebody else said they'd like to see more practical work and practical talks on practical subjects. Someone else said less CW mentioned, but they did put a winking face emoji next to that. So I think they may have been not altogether seriously. So there we are. That's some of the feedback from you. And if you wrote one of those comments, you'll know. And I've included just about every comment in what I'm going to repeat to everybody tonight because I thought it was important to share that. Just before we go back to everybody at Zoom, there's a couple of people put comments on BATC and on Facebook. On Facebook, John2E0TWQ says, a question, we've never mentioned Bright Sparks. Will this continue at CNS? John says. Well, it's something we hope to. Actually, John and Peter, who ran Bright Sparks for us, John has had some ill health recently and has said that he can't carry on at the moment. That's not been an issue, but it's something that we'll certainly look at. You know, probably, if you know me, you'll know how keen I am to support young people coming into this hobby and to electronics in general. So I'm sure that we'll manage to start that when we start meeting again regularly, but one thing at a time with respect, John. We've just got to start sort of gradually here to get it right. David M7BLX on BATC says, unfortunately I didn't receive the questionnaire, but pleased to say I agree wholeheartedly with the result. As a COVID M7, I really need the practical hands-on training, demonstrations and explanations, so looking forward to meeting everyone. Anticipate and accept that the subscription should be raised accordingly. Many thanks for all the support by so many members to date. That's great to hear, David. Yeah, I mean, one thing I was going to come on to later, but because you've mentioned it, it's about mailing lists and about questionnaires. We cannot just send emails to even a member who joins as a member. That gives us no right. In this world of GDPR, it's called, it means that we have to get people's specific permissions to to sign into receiving newsletters, and they also have to have an easy way of unsubscribing. So that does mean if you're watching this now and you think, well, I never get any newsletters from the club, you just need to register on the website. You don't even have to be a member of the club. This is the web address, thanks Tammy, norfolkamateurradio.org. You'll see on their website registration. If you go to that and ask to sign up, that will ask you to sign up to go onto the website and enter things like the forum. And there's also a little tick box on there which says whether you want to receive the newsletter or not. And if you tick that box, then you'll get 1 to 2 newsletters every week. So I'm sorry that you didn't get that survey, David, but that's the rules. That's the rules that every business and every organisation has to live by now to prevent organisations sending unwanted emails. Right, let's get back to calls on Zoom. Someone who's got their hands raised and waving frantically is Steve, G3VA, who's, just a moment of time before your Musician of the Year, I think, Steve.
Needs to unmute. You
need to unmute, sorry. Steve?
There, it wasn't unmuting, sorry about that.
Right.
Evening, everybody. I'd like to concur with what Jim said a long while ago, entirely. It's good for having the meetings as a social thing rather than in my opinion anyway, rather than having talks, because as also as Stuart said, if you are not interested in the talk or it gets a bit boring, you can leave quite easily on Facebook, because you can't in a real meeting, which is, it looks a bit rude, doesn't it? So, the other thing I'm quite aware of is that you and Tammy don't seem to get any holidays. You can't have a holiday for more than 6 days because you've got next week's to do, and probably less than that really with the technical rehearsal that you have to do as well. And obviously you don't have to do one for tonight, I suppose, so it's not too bad, but it's not allowing you to have a holiday. So I think possibly a couple of times a month would be good, every other week maybe, on this YouTube channel, maybe, and do the talks there. But for me, the most entertaining part of what you do, really, more than the talks even, is the preamble before that. The little quizzes that you had, the whose shack is this, used to be very interesting, seeing what other people had as a shack, and all these useful objects that we don't know what they are until the day. That's keeps your mind going. And also people's news. I know you struggle sometimes to get people's news. Some of us don't have a lot of news, but what you do have is always quite interesting. And I think we're all very grateful that you've done what you've done, because it has kept the club together. Without it, I think a lot of members would have gone, out of circulation, really. So that's my 2 pence anyway, David. Back to you.
Well, it is very kind, and we're not sitting here to be to receive lots of compliments and things like that. But it was, as I've said before, it was my instant sort of feeling of survival for the club. It matters a lot to me in my life, and I'm sure to many of you as well. Norfolk Amateur Radio, a very big part of our life, and we've managed to run our lives around it. It's not been so difficult, just because, like most of you, I guess, we haven't been going out a lot, to be honest, and we haven't had any holidays. In fact, we just last night got back from Glasgow. So I'm going to upset Ralph now to know that we were up his way, but we were north of the border for the last few days, and we came back last night. So we tend to run it around that. Yes, being serious, I guess moving forwards, there hopefully will be time when we can go away for more than 5 days or so holiday. But I'm sure we'll work in around the programme and things like that. So very pleased to do it for everybody though, and it's whichever part you like, whether it's the beginning bits, which I called once the nonsense, and someone recorded, do you remember?
Yep.
And it was you, so I have to be very careful, but I don't mean it in a bad way. I just mean it's the nonsense that Tammy and I just do at the beginning, or whether it's the serious talks and everything else. And we've learnt a lot as well from it all, so it's been good, and definitely we've all experienced, and we've got something back from it. As I said, this gave Tammy and me something to do. If you haven't heard me say this before, especially in those early days of lockdown, it wasn't a hardship really at all, because it gave us something to work on together and a break from our work. So Let's go around now to people at home, though, and Tony's got his hand up, so let's go to you. Tony M0TDK.
Oh, hi, and good evening, everybody. Yes, David, actually the results of the survey is sort of ideal for me, really. I mean, I live on the southern borders of Norfolk. You know, we're defending it against Suffolk. So I'm about 16 miles away, and it takes me about 40 minutes to get into CNS. So having something like, social events and in person and talks online is really an ideal situation for me because, well, it's just wonderful. And, I know you're not fishing for compliments, but I think, as somebody else said, you've done a wonderful job in keeping the club together. But up here in the mountains of Norfolk, which you can see, it's a bit cold and snowy outside. I'm just trying to keep cool, incidentally.
I was going to say, you obviously got a totally different microclimate there over in your part of the world.
Well, yes, we're something like 20 metres above sea level here. So, it is the skiing season in South Norfolk. But anyway, we'll pass over that.
You'd be a good poker player, because it looks like you're being very serious.
Where's the moustache?
Yes.
It reflects the light. Wonderful.
All right. Thank you very much, Tony, and thanks for your contributions to everybody, of course, who always contributes as well to NARC Live. It is important. But have you got anything else that you'd like to add tonight?
Not really, other than saying that I think the hybrid variety is probably the best solution. And Paul Money's been mentioned a lot of times this evening. And one of the advantages of having him online is you can adjust his volume, which those who've seen him in person will know to bring your ear defenders. But apart from that, I think the hybrid version is a very good idea. The only thing is, if we're going to have social meetings, to meet in a pub is not a bad idea. But then again, that if we're meeting at CNS and we get chucked out at 9 o'clock, we could always retire to a pub to continue our discussions elsewhere. Anyway, thank you very much, David, and the survey results are very interesting. Back to you.
All right, thanks, Tony.
0 URP.
Yes, I know that is what it feels like. Yeah. Anyway, thank you, Tony, for that, of course. Who wants to wave at me next? Who'd like to talk? I don't want to just come to people unless you want to. Ralph. Oh, I better go to Ralph. I think actually he's waving there because he's going to not forgive me for not popping in to see you when I was north of the border until yesterday morning. Ralph, hello.
Hello. I'm a very gracious, humble man, as you well know, David. Just like Jim M0ZAH, I'm one of the younger members of the club. Why are you laughing?
Well, he wears it better than you, that's for sure.
Well, I've been married for too long. That's what it is. No, I think some of the things that have been said are superb. I do think the unity of the club and the unity of the answers demonstrates the importance of the fellowship of the club. I'm a 5-hour round trip from the club here in the south of Scotland, and it's almost as bad as the 12-hour trip it would be down to Norfolk. So I do think that the importance of the fellowship of the club, which has been important to me when I was in Norfolk and still is through this medium. The other thing is that I think we need to include as many people as we can, including the young folk. And I do think that Bright Sparks is something that the younger people do welcome and love. And it's the way of engendering an interest in the hobby. We've also got to remember that this pandemic is not over. It's anything but over. It's still rife in many places, and I dare say that we could have another spike. And so I think keeping the social side of things, and also keeping the shack in the school is important. But the one thing I probably miss as much as anything is what Peter and Tony and I used to do after Wednesday nights. And that is we used to retire to a place called the Red Lion in Eton, where we would continue with a little libation. And anybody, David, if you had dropped in, and you would be most welcome, I would have been delighted to let you buy me a drink. So the next time you're passing, don't. Just feel free to come, bring a bottle or three, and we'll have some fun. And Tammy, of course, as well. Tammy's more than welcome. But we live in a beautiful part of Scotland, but it is a delight on Wednesday nights to join you. So let's keep the club. It is the Norfolk Amateur Radio Club, but there are a lot of folks who, for various reasons, might not get to the Wednesday nights. So this medium is a superb way of keeping people together. Long may it rain. Thank you, David.
Thank you so much, Ralph. Yeah, it is a compromise, but it is everybody's decision. As I shared, it was also my sort of favourite outcome to keep the club together. I'm really pleased with the outcome, and it certainly gives us a clear mandate of how we're going to take things forward. Good to see you, Ralph. Now, waving his hand now is Tony G0MQG. Hello, Tony. You just need to unmute, by the way.
Hiya. First of all, can you hear me okay?
We can, yeah, absolutely.
Wonderful. Right, okay, I'll go down my little list of notes. First of all, the COVID-19 that we've had to suffer with for the last 2 years, I've had what's probably best described as second-hand experience of it. As you know, David, and maybe one or two others, Sarah contracted it. It was about 3 weeks ago now. She's triple jabbed, as am I. And the effect it had on her, she felt like she had a cold, and she was also rather weak. That only lasted about a week. And after she tested negative for 2 days in succession, she then went back to work, and she's been back to work for about a week now. So it wasn't too bad in her case. I'm sure I know that some people have suffered a lot worse and even gone silent key because of it. So that's that one. I think Jim commented on contests on Wednesdays. So although I'm not a great contester, I think Jim's probably right. There's contests most nights of the week. If we did change the night that we meet, it wouldn't bother me too much unless it was a Thursday. I've got another appointment that I have on Thursdays that I've had for about the last 40 years with a friend of mine where we both go and wet whistles. So that's that one. So I'd rather not have to interfere with that.
The mandate, though, is there. Tony, as I said, the Wednesdays is definitely what most people felt. So that will definitely carry on being a Wednesday.
So that's unlikely to change. Yes, I understand that. Online meetings. Well, I put on my survey form. Excuse me. I put on my survey form that I'd like to see the school meeting for, but I'm happy to go along with formal meetings online and informal ones at the school if that's what everyone else has suggested. I also believe that talks should be open to everyone, not just for club members, because it could bring new people into the hobby if the word gets around about a particularly interesting talk that people are perhaps not licensed or are licensed but not members of the club. It might bring them up to become members, which brings me to another one. Somebody mentioned Bright Sparks. Well, going a little bit further with that, we were also training people in both the foundation, intermediate and full licenses. And if we were going to continue with that, I assume that it would have to be at meetings either at the school, excuse me, It's not COVID. Anyway, if we were going to continue with that, I would imagine we would have to do it. If not at the school, a venue somewhere. So that's that one. And right at the start, you mentioned that about 150 people had renewed their membership so far this year, which raises a point for me, and I may be wrong, but if my memory serves me right, membership was up to about 200 at one time, or almost 200. And I just wondered whether those other 50 have not renewed the membership this year, or indeed last year, because of the COVID business, or whether they've just sort of drifted away. I know one or two have gone SK, and hopefully there's not too many of those. And the last one, somebody mentioned alternative venue for the club in the Village Inn. Well, the people who have been a member of the club for 20 years or more will remember that we've been meeting there before we moved to, I forget what venue got after that. That could have been either Harvey Landings or the little place on Wild Cross we met at. I can't remember. But we met there before, and the landlord wanted to change the way he used the place, so we had to leave. So that one, I don't know whether that's owned by the same landlord. I haven't been in there since the club left. So yeah, that was a venue once before.
I think actually, I don't want to argue about it, obviously, but I think you're thinking of the Ugly Bug, not the Village Inn.
Yes.
Yeah. So I don't think it's actually the Village Inn. That's a different pub completely.
Right. Yeah, I'm thinking
that's
the wrong
okay.
venue. Sorry about
But
that.
thank you very much for all that feedback, Tony. I want to move on because it's called 9, and I want to make sure we get everybody else. But thanks for all those points. As I said, a lot of the decisions have kind of been made now. It will be a Wednesday night and all those other things I mentioned, and we will be correlating this data and sharing it with everybody over the newsletter as well, so everybody can see it. But we'll try and carry on, and things like Bright Sparks and things, of course, we'll try and training, very important, very dear to my heart too, as you know. But we have to do this gradually in a controlled, measured way, really. So I think the first decision that the club had to make was whether it was ready, and a majority-wise, to start meeting again, and then from that we can start planning other things.
Well, before you mute me, my thoughts are personally that COVID-19 is something I think we're going to have to live with. It'll be a bit like the flu epidemic, where we all have flu jabs every year, and I suspect it's going to be much the same as that.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to go away any time soon. And with that, you can mute me.
No, we don't want to mute you at all, Tony. Thank you. I totally agree with you personally, and I'm sure most people here agree. I think if we had this a year ago, well, we did do something last year, I think the feelings would have been very different. Whether it's because the current main prevalent strain of COVID is not as serious for most people, must say that, Omicron, or other things, the fact that I guess 2 years have elapsed and we need to start adapting to this new world. It goes without saying, I hope, but I will say it for everybody anyway. Of course, we will never, as a club, do anything that's against regulations or even against general advice by the government or all medical authorities at all. And we certainly know that COVID is not gone away. That was my opening comments in the piece I wrote in the special questionnaire that went out. But,
well, that's fine with me.
But we just have to adapt, I think, now to accept the fact that it's there. So we learn to live with it. And that's why we wanted to know what everybody felt. And that's why we did the survey and why we could get actual figures. And because so many of you responded, it means that the figures we have are quite representative. Imagine if only 30 people had responded. What would that be? A fifth of the membership. That wouldn't really be representative. But I think
could argue that I wouldn't be a true representative.
Exactly. Yeah. So thank you very much, Tony. Want to get round to other people as well. Roger.
I've got to be Dad's taxi.
Okay. Be Dad's taxi. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us tonight. Now, Roger G3LEI, round to you. You'll need to unmute, Roger. We can't do that for you. I can't hear you. There we go.
Unmuted, yeah. Yes, evening, everybody. Glad to hear that most people are agreeable about having the talks online, because I think that's the obvious solution, really, when it comes to booking people in for an hour or so. Some of them have been embarrassingly short, but I can't really say how long the talk's going to last. I usually do discuss it with them and tell them it's going to be no longer than 1 hour, but when they give, well, I think one gave about 15 minutes once. That's a little bit too short. But you said something about beginners material, David. What sort of beginners material would you like that covered in there?
It wasn't me, Roger, to be clear. I mean, I was reading literally comments that people put. These were comments, individual lines that were that one of the questions, which I can't remember now. I've got lots of bits of paper here, but one of them was basically saying, "Are the talks about right, or would you like to see more of something?" And then put a comment. And those are the sort of comments that people put. And several people put things about practical talks and about talks for newcomers. So I can't answer that question directly. It's interesting, actually, that coincidentally, I don't think Jim G3OLA will mind me mentioning, but when I ran the Club Net 2 Mondays ago, one of the people who on there was quite concerned. He's an M7, a newcomer to the hobby, but really felt we hadn't done much for newcomers, and particularly things he mentioned like propagation and antennas. Now, I know that for many of us who've been a member of the club for a lot of years, we'll think, oh, we've done lots of talks on propagation and antennas. But of course, what we've got to remember is that many people have joined the hobby, especially in the last 2 years. So we need to revisit some of these subjects.
Well, I mentioned to you about repetition when you said you don't want to repeat talks too much.
No,
but I mean, if you repeat a talk, say from Steve on antennas, or Jim from propagation, e-propagation, etc., that might be a repetition for some of us, but for the new people in the club, it's not, is it? And it's always good to go over those things anyway.
But also for lower levels, and I was going on to say actually that I by coincidence about 3 weeks ago, I asked Jim Bacon, because we'd been asked about doing something specifically, for this new member, newcomer to the hobby, on things like propagation. I had to understand and interpret PropQuest and that sort of thing. So that's something I've already talked to Jim, and we're going to slip in to one of the talks here. So, maybe Roger, Roger, for those of you watching, you're not quite sure where Roger's coming from. Roger is the program secretary. So the last 2 years of talks and beyond, but particularly the last 2 years of events on a Wednesday night have either been organised by Tammy and myself or Roger. Mainly the formal talks are organised by Roger. And so we use this opportunity of the survey to actually find out from you what sort of thing you'd also want to hear about. So we've got to talk. You and I will have to get together soon, either virtually or in person even, you never know, and actually talk it through, Roger, and have a plan so that we do over a year cover some of the basic things, because I'm sure even the experienced amateurs, there have been developments of things like PropQuest and things in recent years, as well as things which it's not a bad idea to go over refreshers, even though for some people there'll be things they already know. But as other people have pointed out tonight, it's actually really good sometimes just to have talk where if you know what it's about, if it doesn't interest you or you know all about it, then you don't need to be there.
Well, that's true, yeah, I agree. And I would benefit from that, because I haven't been in the hobby that long, not yet. So that'd be good for me as well.
Well, but Marconi taught you all you know, didn't he?
Oh, well, no, yes, well, I taught him.
Right.
Getting back to the talks, you said one talk every 2 weeks, didn't you? A formal talk. Now, if you're slipping formal talks in between the formal talks, you're going to have a talk every Wednesday night, which is difficult to find.
Hang on, Roger, be fair to me, please, because I've said that when we were doing everything online, that roughly speaking, a talk every other week. Yes. That is true. But we're now looking at a new future where we're going to also meet socially, so there won't be something every week. Because I don't think people anyway would want something truly interactive every other week, like we're doing tonight. It happens that next week, because I promised that we would do something on Metro, we have an interactive, but we generally have one interactive a month on here. That may or may not continue, of course, because it may be that
that could be useful for the beginners as well, you say.
Well, it could, yeah. But we also have to fit in at least one meeting, maybe a month. But it's not that I'm avoiding your question. I promise you I'm not. But I think you'll agree that we only got the results, literally, I only got the results from Sunny about 1 o'clock today. And I've spent all afternoon trying to assimilate it, take it in, and present it to everybody tonight and share it, because that's the right thing to do. But you, as part of the committee, along with the other 10 people and myself, we now need to get together, take the results of this survey and take it forward and see how, you know, the club is going to adapt and make the most of this. But I will just want to do one thing. Several people have thanked Tammy and me for what we've been doing the last couple of years, but I must thank you especially as well, because I've always said at AGMs and things in the past, the programme secretary's job is always difficult. It's always been difficult. And it's been no more difficult probably than the last 2 years, when between you and us, we've had to come up with something for every single Wednesday to try and do something a bit different. So credit to you, Roger. I don't know how you find all these talks.
It's difficult to maintain freshness in these things.
It is difficult. And this is maybe a good opportunity, I think you'd agree with me, to say to people, you know, if you've seen a good talk online or in person, come to that. Let us know. We really do want suggestions, and ideally not just suggestions like like a talk on that, but if you've actually seen a talk by somebody, let us know who it is and we'll contact them. Yeah,
that has happened on a couple of occasions anyway.
Good.
At least.
Yeah, well, thank you, Roger. Thanks for all you've done with it. Honestly, seriously, you know, I know we jibe at each other a little bit and things, but it has been a challenging 2 years. But as the programme secretary, you are as responsible as Tammy and I have for keeping the club entertained and together. Thank you for that.
That's all right, no problem.
Thanks. Okay, let's see. Now, I've got Malcolm just held his hand up there, so if that's all right, I'm going to go to you, G3PDH.
Yes, okay. Hi, David. And also to everybody online or on Zoom here as well. I suppose, in a way, from what you were just talking about with Roger, I mean, it will reduce the number of formal talks anyway, so that will probably take the pressure off finding one every week that you've been having to do so far. But anyway, it was a good return to the survey, as you say. And it's quite amazing, really, how COVID has affected not only offices and the way that we work, but also radio clubs. It's amazing. It's also a very interesting result. And I think probably I perhaps could have half guessed that maybe this would have been the sort of options that people would want to see. But I am very conscious, of course, of the fact that it's quite a strong onus on you and Tammy, but I know that secretly you enjoy doing it anyway. But it will take a little bit of pressure off, I think, by not having to do it every week. With regard to the meetings at the school, I suppose, although we're saying social, I think it would be useful to have a little bit of structure, and even if there was, for the newcomers even, where maybe it's necessary to have a talk with a practical input to show them something, how it works or how to put it together or whatever. You know, maybe 20 minutes of that 2 hours that we get on the social could be useful for doing that kind of thing, even if it's for people who are just interested in the corner, a little bit like the round table talks that you tried to instigate some time ago. So I think a little bit of structure to it would also help to keep it going as an identifiable club meeting, rather than just purely sitting around in circles talking to each other on, maybe not even on radio. But anyway, just a thought on that. Obviously training is an issue which needs to be addressed separately, as that was quite a big aspect to the club's activities. So that's really all probably I wanted to say. I think the outcome is a good outcome, and I think that we can see a good way forward with it, and look forward to a committee meeting to discuss all of these things and ideas in more detail, so we can work out a proper way forward, David.
Yeah, well, thank you, Malcolm. Yeah, it's just, as I'm sure you echo as the president of the club as well, it's very, very encouraging, the response we've had. and the clear mandate as well that we've had. It does make our job as committee fairly, well, not easy, but it does make it clear what we need to do.
Yes, it's very clear cut, which is good.
Yeah. I just want to read a couple of comments now from people who've written things online. Mike G4DYC says a big vote of thanks for everybody concerned running the club, officers, committee, etc., and the hard-working programme secretary, etc. Absolutely, Mike. Colin G0ODR says, even though the government says we don't have to wear masks, we still have individual choice. Meetings in public places can me as safe as we make them. I think that's what you're saying. Absolutely, Colin. We say we've just come back down from Scotland, and it's quite different there. Very different rules. And in fact, for the first time in I don't know how long, we were checked just going into a restaurant, and we had to sign in. Basically, just that's Monday night. So it is very different everywhere. As I say again, we will honestly do things as safely as we possibly can. I've said before here, we try to make it as safe as you can, apart from staying at home, and that's what we'll do. But the fact that you've now asked us to do things online as well as in person means that you should have something from the club, and there should be something for everybody. That's our honest hope. Simon M0SIH says, for beginners it would be good to use the digital modes, not necessarily FT8, but RTTY, PSK, Olivia, etc. How to set up MMRTTY and FL Digi, etc. Well, Simon, I happen to know that you're a teacher, a science teacher. Do I hear a talk coming on? Just a thought for you. Doug 2E0YWP says, since getting back into radio, these talks are helping me a lot. I didn't know how much radio had changed. Thank you both for the hard work. That's from Doug. So thanks very much for that. Now, who hasn't spoken yet? Or actually, we've got Stuart would like to come out. I've got you've got your virtual hand raised. So come back to you, Stuart M0JKB.
Yeah, good evening. Thank you, David. Thank you. Yeah, I just listened to the comments. And as you quite rightly said there, you and Tammy don't want all the praise for doing it. Unfortunately, you're going to get it, but we mustn't forget the people in the background, especially Roger, who's put all these talks together and got people to come on and give us talks we've never ever had at the club. People from America coming on and giving us the benefit of their wives on radio. Great. Right, I've got a few comments written down. I think the big thing is coronavirus, which we know as COVID-19, which has been about for donkey's years. We've now, as a nation and a world, been hit with it big time. It's taught us a new way of working. I work for the local authority. I go out. I'm not emptying dustbins at the moment. I'm now driving a road sweeper again, which is what I enjoy doing. But all through lockdown, we were out working through it, and it taught us a whole new way of doing things. Just keeping a couple of feet extra away from someone, doing things on a different day, instead of having all the drivers and loaders turning up at 6 o'clock in the morning. Phase them out over periods during the morning, so that they don't all arrive at the same time, keeping people apart. And that was very, very important. So COVID has taught us a lot of things, not least just how to wash our hands. It's given us choice, and the other thing, I was coming around to was training in new hands. The Monday Night Net, we've got 3 at least who are regulars on the Monday Night Net who are referring to themselves as COVID hams. They haven't been to a club. They haven't done any training in a classroom. They've done it all online. They've taken their exams online. They've passed. And they're regularly asking for help and information, which obviously we try and give them. But the main point from that is, how do we encourage people back into the hobby if we're not meeting? We are going to meet, as we just said, ad hoc occasionally, plus online. So we need to look at that. And I can't remember who said about the practical side of the hobby. The practicals have all been done away with. The RSGB obviously wanted to recruit members. They wanted to recruit people into the hobby. Because the clubs couldn't meet and couldn't give the practical element, they've done away with it. They've taken it out of the syllabus altogether. So they've gone back to if you like, the days of the RAE. We just, and as you know, David, and you've said 2 or 3 times, I know, you went and done your RAE, you sat your exams, you passed, and you thought, what the hell do I do now? And in the training that we've done with foundation, with intermediate, where we've done the practicals, and people have appreciated them and understood and got them on the air, there isn't that now. They don't have to do it anymore. The RSGB recommendation to clubs is that you continue to do the training, but there is no longer a required assessment. So I think that's one thing we need to take into consideration. I don't want to take the whole evening on about training, because I think that's a separate subject that we need to look at and see where we go from there, David. Couple of other points. One was membership fee. What we're going to do with that? I know you said last week, I believe, about quickly join up now for this year. It'll be £5. Thereafter, it's going to be 18. What about people who don't come to the club and just still view online? Will they A, not pay the fee, or B, just pay the reduced fee? That may be a committee issue that you need to deal with later. And the other thing I want to appeal to, and I'm as guilty as anybody else, input from the viewers. Welcome to everybody watching this evening. Put pen to paper, send David and Tammy something so they got some spiel to run on about at the beginning, because as G3 EVA Steve said earlier, he loves the bit at the beginning, but we're not giving Dave and Tammy anything to put forward at the moment, apart from pictures of sewing machines, apparently. Zero JKB in the group.
You didn't have to mention that again. All right, Stuart, thank you. As regard, I can't go through everything. Honestly, we only got this data today, so you know that. And yes, of course, the fees will have to change. £5, the club can't survive on charging £5. That was only really for an online fee. And so, yes, if you haven't rejoined yet, you know what the club's going to be doing, and it will have to go up. I'm not trying to encourage you to beat the sort of increase, but this is what we always asked everybody to do, is to believe in the club. The price will definitely have to go up. But we can't decide on how much or anything until we knew and know what you will want to do and the cost of venues and everything in 2 years. Plus, we didn't know until today what you really all wanted. So give us a chance. That's going to take time. Everything will take time, but everything, as far as I know and hope, like Bright Sparks, training, practicals, maybe at the club, as several people have actually said, an opportunity. Sonny, who actually put on BATC, a great opportunity maybe with these, what we're going to call socials, but they could be informals at the club, and people bring bits of equipment and we try and they're all going to come, but just give us a chance, because we really do need time to make a proper plan now. And that will be happening, as the club gets together in the next few weeks. Now, anybody at home who hasn't spoken yet on Zoom, this is, and who would like to talk, can I just ask you to wave your hands? It's okay if you just want to be there as a bystander. If you don't want to. Okay, well, what I'm going to just do now, because we're approaching sort of 9:30, not that that's a witching hour, but that's quite a long meeting, let's face it, for 2 hours. So I want to make sure that I read out these other comments that people have made. They're going to sound a bit random, but remember, these are exact quotes of what people wrote that I took out of a spreadsheet today. As regards to any comments on the newsletter or website, somebody said it would be nice to see every club member receive it and read it. Well, just to address that, I did mention it earlier, we cannot just sign everybody up when you join the club automatically for it, because you have to generate a password, as you'd expect, to be able to sign in. We can't be involved with that. And GDPR means that we can't just default by signing you in. It's just the law. So if you do join the club, or if you just want to be part and see our newsletters every week, go to the Norfolk Amateur Radio Club website, go to website registration, fill that in. There we are. There's the address there. And you can join. You will get that regularly, but it's the onus must be on you. Just other quick comments then that people have mentioned. The website and remember the question was on this, any comments on the website or newsletter? Both useful, both are good. Keep up the good work. Excellent, much appreciated. Thanks to everyone who works hard to keep us up to date. Dave and Tammy do an excellent job. Sorry, I should have probably read that one. Always welcome and read to the end. Yes, I can now read. Good content worth reading. Remember, these are all from individuals. A useful contact facility which has kept NARC afloat through very difficult times, achieved with a considerable effort from the producers, which I greatly appreciate. Sarcastic comments about users of different modes should be stopped. There is room in the hobby for everyone. Someone else says, always look forward to reading it. Someone else said, please edit the newsletter to stop somebody from using the newsletter to vent his personal negative feelings about the users of Digimodes like FT8 and to cease denigrating new licensees who do not participate in CW. Such attitudes in the newsletter do not encourage new people to continue in the hobby. And someone else says, I'm very happy with both and appreciate the work that goes into producing them. Someone else says, please keep up the good work. Extremely well done on both. All brilliant, keep up the good work. Someone else says, too much emphasis on CW and contesting in the newsletter. There is a lot more going on which could be included. Just seems to be the same select few who contribute. I'm going to add a note to that. You're absolutely right. That is a lot of what it is all about. But there's only 4 or 5 of us who contribute to the newsletter. The newsletter is open to all of you, whether you're a member of not or not. We would love to see different pieces. But well, just hang on, Roger. I'm just going to put this to people. Yeah, but that people maybe not realise, to be fair, that this is open to everybody. We would love you to contribute, whatever it's about, as long as it's vaguely about amateur radio or electronics or technology, something that's related. We would love to get your stories because several people put this together. We've got people on the propagation team, Roger on the CW team, Phil who does the contest newsletter. You're right, they are the same people every week, but it's only because nobody else would do it if we didn't. And I put together the pieces for the club and the What on Earth and things. So we would love people to contribute. If you have a story in you, a one-off or a series or something like that, as long as it's relevant and not offensive, we will be delighted to include it. So that's the address to write to. That's me, and Tammy and me, radio@dcpmicro.com. Send it to us in good time. We normally prepare the newsletter on a Thursday, and we'll be very, very happy to send it out. And remember, I'm just picking that as a one comment, though. Again, comment. These are all back comments and website or newsletter. Both are very good and professional. Everyone concerned, David, Tammy and all the background helpers have done a brilliant job in keeping the club together during this most challenging period. Thank you very much to all. It's neither the best nor the worst I've seen, but it's good enough. Website is clear. Newsletter always interesting and enjoyable. Just a few more. I'm going to do it because I want to include everything. It's totally balanced because this is what everybody wrote who did add a comment. Always good content and keeps me up to date. The website could do with a major overhaul. The site looks a little outdated and isn't designed well for mobile devices. The newsletter is always a good read and often points to items on the website. I do not seem to catch it very often, need to pay more attention. Needs more contributions from members, not just the regulars. Brilliant work by all. I have no idea how you find the time. Appreciate all the effort concerned. NARC website needs regular checking for out-of-date information. The newsletter layout is too small and difficult to read. And finally, excellent. Keep up the good work. That is verbatim every comment that people have written. So if you'll recognise that if one of you wrote one of those comments. I just think it's to share them with everybody. And finally, the last comments that were made really were, would you be willing to help at events such as... and there's Barford, Field Day, special events, or give a talk. Now, we had several people who said they'd help at Barford, and a few on field days and at special events. I don't think anybody said they would give a talk or stand for or work on the committee. Because we'll, now be planning our AGM very shortly now. Now we know where we're going. It's not too late to either stand for the committee or work on the committee. We would love to have you help, but you don't need to stand on the committee to help us and help your club, and especially for writing occasional regular articles for the newsletter or website. That was another question on there. So if you are able to help with any of those things, then please contact us. You don't have to just wait for a survey to come around. Just drop an email to that address, radio@dcpmicro.com. There it is at the bottom of your screen now. We'd love to hear from you. Now, I think we're nearly there now. I'm going to go back to anybody at home. If you wave your hands on Zoom, if you'd like to take part. I've got Roger first, then I've got Jim.
Right. I see 5 people on here who are quite capable of writing for the newsletter. And I'm going to name them. There's James. He can write the repeater news. He can have a regular column in the newsletter. There's Chris, DWV. He could write a regular antenna, beam and tower column for the newsletter. There's Andy, who can write a regular DX column. Indeed, he did start one time. And I only write, who else did I say? Oh, Tony. He can write a regular technical Tony's Topics. Yes, that's great, Tony. So there's 5 at least who can regularly put a column together each week. I only put a CW column together because I'm catering for the people who read it, the CW people. And we're doing CWTs, FOC contests, CQ Worldwide, the rest of it. So there you go. So we expect to see 5 new articles in the newsletter this week.
Well, I think it's probably a tall order to ask anybody to give a regular weekly commitment, Roger. But wouldn't you agree?
I do.
Well, hang on. So do I. But wouldn't you agree that it would be a nice start just to get an occasional extra contribution from anybody? Let's not sign up people. It's, to be fair, I've not named anybody tonight deliberately.
No, it's all a bit tongue-in-cheek, you
know. I know, mate. But, just to be fair, though, to those people you have named, but we would love contributions, occasional contributions from people. If it becomes regular, that's great. But we would love to hear from you, and we'll try and keep it balanced as well. Now, we had Jim M0ZAH, I think, had his hand up, but it's obliterated on my screen at the moment. Jim, over to you.
Yes. Hi, David. And I just start with... no, Roger is right. There are other people that certainly including myself, and I think that's a discussion to have. But I quite enjoy Roger's columns. I'm not sure who made that comment, but I thought that was quite funny. There was no holding back on the names. There we go. That's the way we need to be. I just wanted to... Stuart mentioned about the M7, the COVID M7s. I've probably spoke to at least 5 of them, and I'm not going to go through names, but they're all absolutely fantastic, and the enthusiasm of most of them is quite incredible for the fact that they've never been to a club, and they've gone and done all the research through online material. And this is what I was saying about having those videos on archive would be fantastic resources for many people, and people like myself. You can't know everything. It's quite nice to go back and have a look at something. But I just want to say, someone mentioned about getting young people back into the hobby. I still think I class as young. And I think there's so many aspects to this hobby that we have to cover, sort of from a technology standpoint. I mean, we've recently looking at Packet. Now, I know Roger's been doing Packet for years, as many other people, but that's actually got some enthusiasm back amongst some young people in their mid-30s and early 40s, and we've been looking at other avenues. We've been setting up some systems on the sides so that we can instantly chat with each other. I think I made a comment somewhere, David, in that survey. I'm sure I did, unless I'm imagining this, about the website not being outdated, but the layout it could really do. And I'm not putting myself forward for this. I'm it's made up very clear. But the website needs an overhaul, in my opinion, and that's just my opinion. Sonny, I could see you there. I'm not putting my name forward. But we're using an instant messaging system, and that's worked really well. And we've been sharing project ideas and things like that. And it's not that would bring more people in, but it's quite inviting because there's no judgment there. We've got a chap, for example, I won't say his name or his age, but he's retired, but he's only now getting into electronics, and he was setting up a 555 timer with a blinking LED, and he had some issues and he was sharing those, and we had a lot of fun going through that. So I think that's the way, is look at all these different ways we can communicate, and the stuff that maybe is old now is new to people and actually quite fun. So I just wanted to add that, and I'm really happy with the COVID M7s and who have gone through and done their full license as well. I think it's really, really nice people, and they've done well. Yeah,
I echo everything you said there. And I know you said you wouldn't put yourself forward to completely redesign the website, but maybe you could help our webmaster, who's not on, unfortunately, tonight. But maybe you could help him, because I know you've got some experience of that sort of thing. So, these things are all about collaborative efforts and help. So I'm not putting you up for it, James, Jim, but hopefully that you might be able to give us some advice at least on that. So looking on mobile devices and things like that. As I said, we're getting, not that we've got a witching hour, but it's been a 2-hour program. And I'm sure many people now are going to need to go and do other things. I need to go and have some dinner very shortly as well. But let's just try and cover everybody at the end. So we've got Sonny and Jim. So Sonny, over to you first.
Yeah, thanks very much, David. I think the way, obviously, I literally stopped on the side of the road in Chelmsford today to send you the data, so obviously I couldn't send everything as clear as I'd like to have done. The helping your club bit is actually a bit more expansive than what you read out earlier, so I just wanted to make people aware that the data that in that last category that David has said, that the information has been captured, and I'll go through that with the people on the committee at the time.
Good.
I've got 14 people, Roger, that are going to possibly give a talk, so you know that they'll be getting an email from you, don't you? And I've got 18 people that might be writing an article for the newsletter at all. So sorry, guys, for giving me your information. It was the biggest mistake you could have possibly done. But you'll be receiving a very gentle email from everybody encouraging you in the direction of which you have validated your responses. How's that, David? Thank you ever so much.
No, that's fine. Thanks. I didn't. Yeah, that's fine. As you say, it was a bit of a heck of a spreadsheet, as you I think you'll agree, and with 109 columns down.
It's.
I
it's
didn't
just
get all that information. I think maybe, but
no, it's the common source values thing of how Google announces its thing. I could have helped a bit more, but like I say, it's been a hell of a day for myself. And yeah, Jim ZAH, yours was the doesn't work on mobile devices comment, so he did read it out, so you're not misconfused, because I've just looked. So you did make the comment. I agree. I also I try and help Webmaster for Mark. I do a lot of the firefighting and help users with password problems and stuff like that. But yeah, certainly the website could do with a redesign, but once again, I'm in the boat of don't have the time personally to dedicate my entire life to redo it, but would more than happy to consult to, add contributions. I've got a thumbs up from James. So as much as he dodged the bullet, did you see how quickly he moved when he started to dig himself the hole of I'm going to redesign the website? So certainly perhaps maybe the three of us or maybe more need to have a chat with Mark and see what we can do, because obviously we want to possibly build something offline before we swap it over, etc., etc. So not volunteering, but we'll have a chat about it at the committee meeting. I think, David, is probably the best thing.
Absolutely fine. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm going to go to Jim now, G3YLA.
Yeah, thanks, David. And really interesting discussion tonight. Really some good views and all very valid. Just to say that all this CW banter is very much tongue-in-cheek, but it is quite a big grouping within the club. And what we'd really love to see is for similar big groupings to spring up, from other modes and sections and particular interests, whether it be FT8 or the digital modes, whether it be SATCOMs, whether it be computers in radio, home brewing or whatever. There's so much room for it, and there's even with the best will in the world in the old days with proper full-on club meetings, one didn't really have the time to get all the kit out on the bench and the soldering irons and do all that proper elmering, which you could probably put together fairly well as an online part for it. And I do like the idea, David. I've been thinking about the beginner's guides to whatever the topic is, and that could include a slide talk, a shortish one, so it's not too much data to overload people with at the beginning, but also a quite a determined sort of Q&A bit afterwards, or a practical bit as part of it. So if it were about, in the case that was mentioned about PropQuest, it could include sharing the screen and showing people exactly how to move from one bit to the other, what it told you about the band conditions, how the band sounds by plugging your rig into the meeting and things like that. So I think there's a lot of exciting things one could do, and possibly it wouldn't be too far-fetched to say, of our two talks in say a month, let's just assume we've got 4-week months. I know we haven't, but let's assume we have. If you had 2 online talks, I can't think of a good reason, subject to getting people to do them, why you couldn't have one of them being a sort of an Elmering talk, something like that. But anyway, that was just my 2 penneth on that.
It's right, Jim, and all these things we can talk about, and I agree. I think that we don't know, we haven't met yet, as you know, as a committee. This data is just hours old, but it may well we decide we only meet once a month at the school or something, and maybe the other night we do something sort of very informally on here, as you say. whatever. I'm sure there are many people, as you and lots of other people have said, they don't just have to be brand new to the hobby to realise that they would like to get back into get into some of the new modes and things like that. VHF, I often get people saying we don't seem to do it much as a club on VHF, but we have tried, and we bought a decent radio, the IC 9700 we own, to try.
There's a group of us doing the VHF contest now.
Hey, good.
Five or six people in the club. Excellent. Already active again.
Yeah, it's good, because we bought that radio to make us more active, hopefully, in those modes. So, but anyway, that's really good, Jim. Okay, now I'm just going to go now to anybody else who hasn't spoken yet. I can see Terry in the state, N2XCZ. I'm not trying to pick on you, Terry. You can wave. Would you like to say anything, Terry? It's up to you.
Yeah, hi.
Hello.
Everybody. Hi, everybody. Just figured I'd join your meeting, and I think I'll be joining your club, seeing as I'm in here in England. It's been interesting listening to you all, and I hope you start the meetings up a little soon, and I'll come and see everybody.
Good, excellent. Well, the best way to keep in touch, Terry, apart from you can look at our website, but as I mentioned earlier, if you sign up to the website registration, the web address is norfolkamateurradio.org, as we said. There it is at the bottom of your screen. And if you sign up there for that, including the newsletters, you'll get to see what we do. And of course, over the coming weeks and months, you'll get to see about when we're meeting for real, as well as meeting online and things as well. So that'd be good. Thanks for joining. So whereabouts are you? You're obviously from the other side of the pond, but whereabouts are you residing now?
Well, I'm in Diss at the moment. Originally, I'm from New York, as you can tell. But, I was born in Rhodesia, so it gave me a British passport, so I can go anywhere I like. Excellent. And if you ever need anywhere to go, I've got my own plane as well. So.
Oh, you've got your own plane. That sounds good. That saved us a few hours driving the last few days, but thank you very much. Anyway, good to meet you, Terry.
That's good to meet you as well, all of you.
Thanks.
All right.
Thanks for joining us.
All right. So I just go onto the website and join up, correct?
Yep, you just go there. That's the first port of call, I think. If you do that first, go to norfolkamateurradio.org at the bottom of the screen now. And if you go onto website registration, I think it's called, and there is a little box there you can tick to opt in to receiving newsletters. That will get you a regular newsletter every week, and you'll start to see what we're about.
All right, excellent. Okay, it's nice meeting everybody.
And you, Terry, thank you for joining us.
And you're welcome, sir.
So, anybody else in the closing minutes of the show? Tony, yeah, we're going to come to you. Tony G0MQG.
Yeah, back from Dad's taxi. Done that. I just got to say to Roger, I'll come up with some more technical ones. I'll try and keep them fairly simple so I am speaking over top of people's heads. But I've got no intention of doing one a week, Roger. I'll spend all my time sitting in front of this computer. But I'll come up with a few more, and maybe one a month. I thought something like that, which was what I was doing last time. I've got several stored up here, which I done some time ago, which have not been written down. So I'll start scratching my head and remember how I've done whatever it was I'd done at the time and see what I can come up with.
You mean you'll write it for the newsletter? You mean you'll write it for the newsletter, Tony?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Okay.
Where I've done it before, I wrote it as an article, a couple of paragraphs or whatever it was, and then I used to email it to David, and David put it in the newsletter.
Yeah,
they're called Tony's Technical Tips.
I can email it to you. It doesn't bother me.
If you send it to me, probably Tony, because I'm the one who actually kind of constructs the newsletter from stories and puts it together. But if I'm not here, obviously I'll let you know who else to send it to. But that's great. Thank you, Tony.
Okay, that's what I'll do then.
Anybody else from anybody else? I mean, we've heard from most people, I guess, now tonight. Steve, got your hand up. G3VA.
I was just thinking, spitballing this, is there any way we could have virtual meetings like we're having now, but using radio as well for the audio? To make it a little bit more interesting, actually using radio for the virtual meetings?
There is a problem, and the big problem, which we did right in the early days, if you remember back to NARC Live when we started it all, and we were well, we just didn't know, really what was going to happen, and we were flying with it. And I made an adapter to connect a radio into our system. The biggest problem is latency, and that means the delay. Now, if you're on Zoom now, this is live, and within a few milliseconds, you can correspond and we can talk like a conversation. But if you're watching this on BATC or Facebook, you're probably between 20 seconds and a minute old. So to have any kind of conversation, if you were, say, watching on BATC and you wanted to join on the radio, you'd never do it because you literally could be 20, 30 seconds out. That's a problem. That's a technical problem. There's nothing I can do about it because it's the way the systems work. It's not here. The problem we send out live to both those streams. So I'm not sure how that would work, Steve, but it's something we can think about.
Yeah, I was just thinking it would make it a bit more interesting. It's real radio, and you get the chance to see the people you're actually talking to.
Yeah,
a bit like the Monday Night Net, but in 3D.
I think so. The other little issue we'd have, I mean, I guess I could be, say, net control or something, but as you know, we're not allowed to broadcast, so you couldn't just give out a call sign and talk randomly on the repeater or whatever. So I think that would need quite a lot of thinking about. It's not impossible, but probably quite difficult to do.
Okay.
But thanks.
You're a magician. You can do that.
I can't change the license regulations, and I can't change the delay that is called latency on BATC or Facebook. But
also going back to something that you brought up a little earlier with somebody put a message in virtually sort of, saying that there's too much CW. And I quite agree. I'm not a CW fan, but if that's the only thing people are talking about, then obviously you've got to expect that that's what's going to be in there. And if it was somebody talking about dogs or cats or something, and they were the only people talking, that's what you're going to get. So I totally agree. Other people should put some information in and letters in if they want a variation.
That's the thing, really, Steve. It is about, there's nothing biased about it. I assure you, the fact that, for example, Roger's on the committee does not, or is our programme secretary, means no influence whatsoever. That is his passion. As CW is well known, and lots of other people in the club as well, and that's why he writes that column every single week. Just like Phil G4LPP writes it on contesting. That's quite believe me, it's quite a commitment to do that. But we welcome it from anybody else. Don't let it put you off that it has to be every week, because it doesn't have to be to start with. I'm sure if someone would just to say, I'll write the occasional column on VHF or on these various data modes or television, my own passion maybe, things like that, we'd be more than happy to reproduce them. We really would.
David?
Yes?
I don't think you'll find that the radio thing will come off, because that could be construed as broadcasting.
That's what I said. That's why it'd be difficult. You could possibly do it with me being not a net controller or something, but I don't really see how that would work.
You're talking to everybody, you see.
Yeah.
That's why we can't do GB2CW.
Yeah.
With our own call signs.
No, I think that probably is difficult. But I know what I mean. It would be nice. We'll put some thinking together and see if we can do something as a hybrid. The other thing, by the way, that's occurred to me when people like Jim G3YLA was talking about beginners and things like that, there's nothing to stop us having a different night maybe for something like that, and a much smaller group like this Zoom group, or even just running it conventionally, maybe without Tammy and me here. We have a Zoom license which I can share with people to use, so that you could just have a group of a dozen or so newcomers to the hobby, or just people interested in a specific evening, an interactive evening on one of these modes. Or what about these social get-togethers? We've called it a social get-together at the CNS school, but of course that can be practical as well, and people sit down in the corner with a radio or a computer and show how to set things up like that. All these things are possible. Is there anybody else at home now who would like to say anything? Because I'm quite aware we're getting quite late now, and I'm not trying to end it. I don't want to stop anybody saying anything they'd like to, but I think at 10 to 10 we probably need to be finishing things.
Yeah, I've got to go get up at 2:45, so I better go anyway.
2:45, well, okay. Well, look...
PW contest, David.
All right, well, thank you very much indeed to everybody now, from both Tammy and me for this evening, for everybody contributing. Can't probably see both of us, Tammy.
You want to see me too?
Well, I'm just about finishing everything off now, I think, for NARC Live. Thanks again to every one of you who, particularly if you took part in the survey. That was the most important thing, because it's given us a clear mandate of what to do. The committee will be meeting in the next week or two, and we'll work out a plan from there. Please don't expect for us to be able to do everything at once. You've given us plenty of ideas, though, and things to take forward. And of course, we hope that things like training and Bright Sparks and things will all return. But we've got to take one step at a time. And as I said before, we're going to make sure it's a careful step as well. And if you don't feel like, if you're one of those people who just said, I'm not really ready for meetings yet, and there were quite a few, there's around about a third of the people said that you don't feel ready yet to meet. We hope the fact that we're going to continue doing something like this online, at least every other week or something like that, but at least twice a month, I think is fair to say, we'll be doing something like this for talks. So you won't be left out, and we'd still love to hear your news and views and everything else. So keep sending them to us. And we will be happy to publish them. But that is it for tonight's Members Forum. Probably, and I've been a chairman for a long time now, and I've been a member of this club over 20 years, and I think this might be one of the most important moments of the club as we all leave a pandemic, or at least gradually evolve into a new world and adapt to the new world. And it's nice that you've taken the time to tell us what you want from your club. So thank you very much for joining us tonight. Thanks, of course, to Tammy, as always, for holding the controls. It may look easy, but there's been quite a lot of work necessary to make it look reasonable on Zoom tonight. Just to remind you what's happening in the club this week. On Sunday, we've got GB2RS News on GB3MB at 7 o'clock. On Monday night at 7:30, we've got the Monday Night Net with Tim, M1MIT. And at 8:30, the 80-metre CW net on 3.543 megahertz. And next Wednesday, it's much more relaxed. It's the Retro Technology Interactive here on Zoom. I hope that you'll join us for that. Look out those various bits of retro technology that you've got, whether they're radios or other things. Send us pictures, send us stories, anything at all. Or even better, join us live on Zoom as people have tonight and show us your bits of retro technology. I'm going to dig out a video phone, I think.
Yeah.
I wonder if I can get a video phone to my mate Kevin by next week. Maybe we can try and do a video call with a video phone that's about 20 years old. It was the first one that BT brought out. How about that? So I'm going to do a bit of retro as well. But thanks again for joining us tonight. Remember to send us those stories and everything else for the programme. But for now, from Tammy M0TC.
Bye-bye.
And from me, David G7URP. Lovely to see you. Just have a look at everybody at home now, waving goodbye as well. Take care of yourselves. We'll see you again next week for NARC Live at 7:30. Bye-bye.